how do you do it? And why requirement driven? I would say if there's only one factor a team should rely on to improve all the possible successes for an ideal method, I would say communication is the best. It's the most important. And I want to use a real world, a project I involved to explain how teams normally communicate with each other. And I think I'm pretty sure all of you will be familiar with this kind of a experience. Here is one. So we are working a software function called email announcement. So you create the email such as announcing the SpecDD method, the webinar on the SpecDD. Each of you receive email from us. So we want to send the emails, but one of the features I asked my product owner to create is to automate the status of the email sending. Meaning when you send the email, often you send, let's just focus on one of the sending all active customers. So there are 39.25 sent, and to be sent is still 30. And how many failed, and how many opened. And one of the features we want to see is this status change. The status initially should be sending, followed by in progress, followed by sent. So here is a simple, very, very simple status. On the day one, we create a story or a requirement. We say we need a support status automation. It should support to be sent, in progress, sent, and we believe it's about 2 days of effort. It just make sure the status for any activity can properly change from to be sent to in progress to sent. As a product owner, you would think this requirement is simple enough. There's no need to design other two details of the requirement other than just creating a pictures showing the status at a different stage. But on day 3, after it was first implemented and tested by the product owners, and we found some problems. The problem we found is while you are using one browser to send, initially it pop up in this dialog window like this. So start to send email. Then you do see the status change from in progress and sent. The problem is that when you go to a different browser, we cannot see while this window is pop up. It can take 10 minutes, 20 minutes, even 30 minutes to stay there, because when you have a huge customer base analyzing those emails, analyzing those people who have unsubscribed, analyzing email maybe should not be sent redundantly, it takes a long time to prepare. As a result, when you go to a different browser, the status we found is it's empty. So we communicate with the programmers, and the programmer's answer was, well, we cannot show the status because the state of this email sending doesn't have a value while preparing for data. So obviously you can communicate with the customers, with the programmer says, let's add the status, say preparing for data, and add 2 more to state. But the point I really want to raise is I want to emphasize what we learned from this kind of daily examples. And I think I think from this kind of example, what we learn is, as a product owner or end user, the customer who use the software, our thinking process is very empirical. We don't really have a concept of there need to be a status state on the server side, remembering its state. Therefore, you can display the status to be initially preparing, then in process, percentage, finish, then finally finish. We just have a mental image that we want to see this kind of a status changes, but we don't really represent such logic in a mathematical way or discrete math ways. However, programmers think in this process in the reverse way. If there's no status state, there's no value on the server side, I cannot display a status change. That causes the communication gap. And such communication gap, if you think about how the test engineers to think about a software functions like the status email sending, they happen to be thinking the following way. They look at the requirement. They also look at the working software. So therefore, they create test cases to recognize there are something our end user want to see, but let's look at what the working software we have so that we can write the test procedures. So here's the test case one. When sending a new announcement now, we should see the status changing to be from sending to in progress to finished. And the test case two, as a matter of fact, I just jumped to test case three. When you schedule an email to be sent at a future time, today is Wednesday, I want to send an email tomorrow morning, then the status should change, should see from schedule as you see, it's scheduled to be sent tomorrow. And then by tomorrow morning, 9 p.m., when it's sending, then it should be sending, then in progress and finished. So the point I want to emphasize is the end user, the product owners, thinking a software based on, this is what I want to see. I do not care how you program it. The developer thinking more like, if I have the math logic in my software, therefore, you can use the software only because I have the functions in my code. And I think the QA people take the compromise. They recognize what the product owner, the end user want. They also recognize that this is what the working software is like. So let's be realistic. Here's testing procedures. So what we learn from this example, you're going to see fighting. You're going to see people are so talented. And you'll see conflict. If you emphasize, me as the product owner, and I recognize the value of my customers, therefore, the software ought to be behaving like what people's thinking, more like empirical. It's more like a feel, less matched like 1 + 2 = 3. You'll see people frustrated. So we have to respect everybody's thinking logic. But is it true we must create a standard for better communications? That, I think, is why Agile emphasizes user story need to be the communications, making the requirement to be less complicated, recognizing every product function has user values. It actually makes the communication more effective. And it's